My final thing before moving off of these general issues is that it's really useful to have a structure, a cognitive structure, when we're thinking through legal and ethical issues. And there are lots of them out there. Actually, they've begun to proliferate. I continue to use Hill and her colleagues' model. I like it a lot. Hill, Glasser, and Hardin. They do three things. Actually, they just published a book about a year ago that is an update, but it's the same core. What I like about what they do is that they have a standard kind of cognitive problem-solving model. Have any of you used that with clients or working with clients, kind of, you know, problem-solving, teaching a problem-solving model? Okay, so it's the standard, you know, and when you work with adolescents, you know, what I like to call bad boys and girls, you know, Spivak and Schur's work about interpersonal cognitive problem-solving had us teaching them very explicitly how to do problem-solving in social interactions. It's basically defining the problem, you know, recognizing and defining it, generating some alternatives, evaluating those alternatives, making a choice, and then getting feedback about them. Okay, so it's very, very simple, but what I like about Hill and her colleagues is that they've made it more complicated in a good way. What they say is that we need to be very aware of the power differentials and existing power differentials in relationships with clients, as well as existing power differentials that occur between a therapist, particular age, gender, race, and so on, and their client, and that would occur in the community. Okay? And what I like about their focus on power is the reason that we have ethics codes. We don't need ethics codes if we don't have any power. Ethics has to do with the proper use of power. You know, that old saying, Lord Acton, the 19th century historian, who was actually an amateur historian, has probably quoted much more than anyone else on this issue, said that power tends to corrupt and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And we see it all over the place. You walk by the kiosk with the newspaper in it, you know, there's all this information about people misusing power, and we experience it day in and day out in various small ways. And we are just as subject to the seduction of power as anyone else. And so our ethics codes are intended to give us guidance about how to handle power in situations that have proven problematic in the past. They're very empirical in that regard. They also ask us to be aware of our affect, which is the countertransference part of it. And they don't talk about it in terms of transference, countertransference, but it's very similar. And it's about, you know, we can certainly get really upset or angry at our clients. And nobody in here, I'm sure, has ever had that experience, right? That's just part of the deal. And what they're asking us to do in the process of problem solving is to be aware of whether we like or dislike this client, whether we're angry with them, whether we're comfortable with our consultant if we're consulting, whether we're comfortable with the solution that we're considering. You know? So we may feel really good about it, or we may have a lot of discomfort, and they're asking us to not discard that discomfort, to really be looking at it and thinking about it, and to be using the information we get from our affect and from our intuition as well as our cognitive piece. So they do, I think, a nice job of making suggestions about some additions to the standard problem-solving model that I think are very helpful. To summarize, while I can't tell you that it would have been a different outcome for poor Dr. Goldstein, had he consulted, if he kept good records, even the appeals court gave some room for there to be a decision by Dr. Goldstein that he thought that this guy was not dangerous based upon his experience with him, but it would come a lot from what the records said, right? So keeping a good record, maintaining our knowledge, and using a structured pattern of problem solving are all helpful ways of keeping ourselves oriented when we're in difficult territory, okay? And it's also, from my perspective, important to remember that what seems to be familiar and easy territory is not necessarily that. And that's what the Ewing versus Goldstein case says. This is pretty familiar, this is pretty straightforward. No.